Hello friends, as you know that in the last lecture we already discussed about the Khilafat movement. So in the same row now we are going to discuss about the non-cooperation movement, which is one of the most important movement in the Indian history. So before going to have a brief discussion about the non-cooperation movement, we have to know that how it all started. I mean a kind of brief overview of the movement, such as in the late 1910 and early 1920s was marked by the significant discontentment due to various factors. As you know that we already discussed about the Rowlatt Act, Jallianwala Bagh massacre and martial law in the Punjab, which also creates a kind of disillusion among the Indians. So because of such harsh laws or the act such as Rowlatt Act, Jallianwala Bagh incident and martial law uh, created a kind of anger among the masses of the Indian. So now Montague-Chelmsford reforms of 1919 it was also failed to satisfy the Indian aspiration for self-governance, and Indian Muslims were angered by broken promises regarding the Turkey's treatment after World War I. And then it also affected their spiritual connections, because as we know that the caliphate was not only the temporal but also a kind of symbol of the spiritual unity of the Muslims. So the Hunter Committee's investigation into the Punjab disturbances was perceived as a whitewash. And then by early 1920s, it also created a kind of excuse in favor of the British rule, and that was diminishing rapidly. Gandhi's sympathy for the Khilafat cause and his suggestion of non-cooperation uh, with the British government gained attraction. The Congress, disillusioned with the constitutional means and also considered non-cooperation as a strategy for political advancement. The All India Congress Committee convened in 1920 in the month of May, and it also planned a kind of special session in the September to decide on a course of action. So the Indian populace, increasingly politically conscious, was outraged by perceived insults from the British government, and then the economic distress also fueled a kind of discontent or rage among the with the high price, food shortages, drought, and the epidemics affecting various sections of the society. Now we have to know the background of the non-cooperation movement, that what were the reasons because of that the movement was started. I mean, you know that non-cooperation movement was one of the most strategic movement that was in the context of, I mean, to provide the acceleration or the speed towards the independence of the India. So these were the factors that actually influence the uh, people in terms of take some action towards the uh, Britishers. So, in the similar way, these are the factors such as economic hardships in the post World War I, such as there were sharp increase in the price of daily commodities and decline in the imports during the war, followed by a resurgence, and also impacted the Indian industries negatively, and the production, and then the production fell, factories closed, and the workers started suffering, and finally the peasantry, burdened by the rent and taxes, worsening the economic situation, was also the reason for the initiative of the non-cooperation movement. And then a kind of political disillusionment, such as nationalists were disillusioned as the British failed to fulfill the promise of democracy and self-determination, because you know that Britishers have a kind of promise in the name of their values such as good and conscience. They promise to provide more prosperity to the India, but finally they fail to fulfill such promises of democracy and the self-determination. Similarly, strengthening of the anti-British sentiment among the non-cooperation Khilafat movement. due to such failure, it was happened a kind of uh, anti-British, a kind of mobilization towards the British and also among the non-cooperation and the Khilafat movement. Finally, we are coming towards the Rowlatt Act, which was also one of the reason, because you know that in the last lecture we already discussed about the Rowlatt Act, which was passed by the British government, and this act actually empowered the government to imprison individuals without any trial, and also the objective of this act was to suppress the nationalist without any legal recourse. Gandhi also initiated satyagraha in opposition of the Rowlatt Act and also witnessed the strikes and demonstration across India. And one more incident, that is Jallianwala Bagh massacre in 1919, where General Dyer also ordered to open fire on an unarmed crowd which was protesting uh, for arrest. So thousands killed and wounded and shocking the world. Finally, figures like Rabindranath Tagore, who also protested uh, and also renounced his knighthood. Finally, the Government of India Act 1919, which also introduced as a constitutional reform, failed to satisfy Indian demand for self-government, condemned the majority of the leaders as disappointing and unsatisfactory. Finally, the Khilafat issue, which we already discussed, somehow added advantage to the anti-British sentiment, also created a kind of support uh, of the Muslims, and Gandhi's leadership provided the final push for the popular upsurge against the British rule. So friends, now we are coming towards the aspect of the non-cooperation movement. There are various aspects, but two aspects. Certainly, the non-cooperation movement encompass the constructive and the destructive aspect. So basically, these constructive aspects include the nationalization of the education, in which basically people emphasis on the promoting education with the Indian ethos and the values. Also includes the promotion of the indigenous goods, encouragement of the locally made products to reduce dependence on British imports. And also, it favors the popularization of the charkha and the khadi for the promotion of the spinning wheel and the uh, hand woven cloth as symbols of the self-reliance and independence. So the enrollment of volunteer corps, mobilization of the volunteers for the various social and the political activities in support of the movement. Now we are moving towards the destructive aspects. What were the destructives? It means the harmful aspect of the non-cooperation movement, such as boycott of the law courts and refusal to participate in the British judicial system to protest unfair laws and the treatment. It also endorsed the boycott of the educational institution, such as the withdrawal from the British schools and colleges to undermine the colonial education system, and boycott of the election to the legislature, non-participation in the colonial legislative elections to challenge British authority, and also the boycott of official functions and refusal to attend or participate in events organized by British authorities, and also includes the boycott of British goods and avoidance of the purchasing British manufactured products hit at the economic backbone of colonialism. And finally, it surrenders of the honors and titles conferred by the British. The people started to surrendering their honors and the entitlement that they gained from the Britishers, such as the symbolic rejection of the British honors and recognition of demonstrate allegiances to the nationalist cause. So, friends, we are going to discuss about the various phases of the non-cooperation movement, such as the first phase, which started from January to March 1921, which also emphasized on boycotting schools, colleges, and law courts, and also focus on the promoting the use of charkha, spinning wheel. Widespread student unrest observed. Prominent lawyers like the C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru abandoned their legal practices in support. The second phase, which started from April 1921 onwards, So the objectives include raising rupee 1 crore for the Tilak Swaraj Fund by August 1921, and which also aim to the enrollment of 1 crore Congress members and targeted installation of the 20 lakh charkhas by June 30. The third phase basically started from July 1921 onwards, which also stressed on boycotting foreign clothes and also planned to boycott of the upcoming visits of the Prince of the Wales in November 1921. It also continued effort to popularize charkha and khadi, which also planned jail bharo, which means the fills the jail campaign by the Congress volunteers. And the last phase also created a kind of shift towards radicalism, which was observed during that time. So Congress volunteers mobilized people, leading to the potential revolt, and Gandhi planned a non-revenue campaign at Bardoli and a mass civil disobedience movement for freedom of speech, press and association. And finally, the incident at Chauri Chaura on 5th February 1922, where angry uh, peasants attack a local police station, which also prompted Gandhi to withdraw the non-cooperation movement. Now, we have to look over the responses. Those were actually coming from the people, such as different class, leadership from the middle class, limited response from the elite politicians, and support from the Indian business group, and also some criticism from the big businesses. So, leadership class or middle class, they initially led by the middle class, but they had reservation about Gandhi's program. And there is a kind of limited response from elite politicians, and we can include uh, cities like Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, which also showed a kind of limited response. Elite politicians were very hesitant, or they were not ready to basically, or we can say, especially towards resigning from government services and surrendering their titles. Economic boycott received support from Indian business group, particularly benefiting the textile industry due to Swadeshi emphasis, and criticism from big business such as remained critical due to fear of labor unrest, which followed the non-cooperation movement. Newcomers in Indian politics they also uh, express their interest and aspiration in the Gandhian movement, and support from the leaders like Rajendra Prasad in Bihar and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel in Gujarat. They also created a kind of solid support to the movement of Gandhi, and we can also include the student response, such as thousands of the students left government schools and colleges to join the national institutions. They also played an active role, such as volunteers of the movement, and also not last but least, such as women's participation. We can say that women also have a kind of participation in the non-cooperation movement. Women gave up parda, they offered jewelry for the Tilak Fund, and participated actively in picketing foreign cloth and liquor shops. Peasants and workers' participation was also one of the strategy that actually uh, uh, created a kind of massive participation from peasants and workers. They also got opportunity to express grievances against British and Indian masters. Some instances of the peasants turning against landlords and traders, which also indicated a new dimension to the movement. Now, we have to see that how the movement spread across the India. Basically, the movement spread in the various regions of the Indian states, including Bengal, Assam, United Province, Awadh, Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. So basically, some kind of class, or we can say that particular class, always ready to participate or support the movement, such an as well as in Bengal, we can say that in Bengal, anti-union board agitation, and in Assam, strikes in tea plantation, steamer services, and Assam Bengal Railways. United Province, which is nowadays called as UP. There were some agrarian riots, Ekka movement, and we can also include the Awadh region where the Kisan Sabha movement was happened, and Akali movement for Gurudwara reform in Punjab. Rajasthan was not escape from such position. Peasant protest, Vijolia movement, Bhil movement were the part of such, the non-cooperation extension of the non-cooperation movement. And Gujarat, which also, played an important role in spreading the movement, non-cooperation as an alternative to revolutionary terrorism. Karnataka had a limited impact where workers go for the strikes at textile mills, and Andhra Pradesh, such as tribal and peasant grievances, refusal to pay taxes, and Tamil Nadu, leadership by C. Rajagopalachari, S. Satyamurthy, and Periyar EVR were also very active in accelerating the non-cooperation movement. And finally, the Kerala, where peasants, anti-Gemini struggles, and the Mopila revolt was also one of the important extension of the non-cooperation movement. But sadly, we have to recognize that due to some reason or some causes, the movement was failed. Not we can say it completely failed, but somehow it created a kind of pressure over the Britisher. But due to some incident such as Chori Chora incident, lack of discipline and among the Indians, and abolishment of the caliphate, and the rise of militancy, issues of the class revolution, government repression, all such the causes or the incidences which make a pressure on the people or the leaders of the movement to withdraw from the movement, such as Chori Chora was one of the most important movement, which includes the violence, preach non-violent principle, and promoting withdrawal. So lack of discipline was also one of the reason, such as Indian masses unprepared, and also violence erupted there, like the Mopila revolt and the abolishment of the caliphate. The Khilafat issue lost relevance with the Turkish reforms, and rise of military was also one of the reason, which also makes a kind of shift towards radical tactics, risk losing popular support, and also movement deviated from the Gandhi's uh, control of the mass approach, which was also an issue of class revolution, and also government repression. The British crackdown made continuation untenable. Now, somehow we can say that the movement played an important or the significant role in various aspects, such as it also created a sense of Hindu-Muslim unity, which sparked unprecedented unity between Hindus and Muslims, which also laid the foundation for secularism and the collective resistance against colonial rule. Social justice, we can say that brought issue of caste, discrimination, and untouchability to the forefront, and also established Gandhi as a leader for social justice. Finally, the mass movement or the mass participation, we can say that we witnessed during the whole movement a wide-ranging participation across Indian society, and including peasants, workers, students, and women, which also channeled the grievances against British rule and Indian landlords. And the movement also created a kind of sense towards the national consciousness, which fostered the political and the social awareness, and also inculcated a sense of nationalism among the Indians, which also created a kind of inspiration for the subsequent movements, which also set a precedent for future movements like civil disobedience and Quit India, building on the momentum and the tactics of non-cooperation. Friends, now we are going to summarize or conclude the movement in the following way, such as the non-cooperation movement created a kind of landmark in India's independence struggle. And we know that Rowlatt Act, Chelmsford reform, Jallianwala Bagh massacre, and the Khilafat issue they were very much, uh, I mean, prone towards the creating a kind of instability to restrain the movement. But the Gandhi's vision, we can say that, was very insightful in terms of uniting the Hindu-Muslim against British rule, and program such as the boycotting government institution, promoting khadi, charkha, etc. played an important role in promoting the uh, strength of the movement. And finally, the massive support from the different parts of the world, different parts of the India, notably from the common people on a large scale, which also provided a kind of strength to the movement. And finally, challenges which includes in the movement was instances like the Chori Chora incident, and the, we can say that, kind of a kind of limited success, which failed to achieve the caliphate restitution, but also highlighted moral strength, and its impact was not less. Significantly, the movement advanced the cause of Indian independence in a short span.